Hi, everyone. Today I am here to talk about a topic that not a lot of people want to talk about. So that's death and dying and end of life care. I personally do love to talk about that topic, and I have a way of clearing a room when I do that because I also want to do that at a party often. But when people leave the room or don't want to have a conversation with me, I'm even more fascinated by the topic. And as a palliative care nurse, I have also experienced that people who are dying have not had those conversations with their family members. And we live in a society where we'll avoid the topic at any cost. So this channel is here to have conversations with people like you and me about the topic, be curious, and learn from each other. So just like you would plan for a trip, if you were going on a trip, you would plan your route, you would buy insurance, you would want to think about who you want there. Our end of life journey is like that. We need to have a conversation about it if we want it to go the way we want it to go. So the chances of it going that way are higher if we have expressed those wishes to our loved ones. So that's my hope for this channel. And my hope is that we can continue to have those conversations and feel really comfortable doing so. And so it's my pleasure and honor to introduce today Chelsea Petal. She's the founder of Circle Space. She's an end of life planner, end of life doula, and end of life educator and event planner. So, welcome, Chelsea. Thank you for having that conversation with me today. Um, I was going to just ask you a few questions about your journey. And I wanted to start with when you were a young girl. Like, what was your understanding of death and dying?
hmm Thanks so much for having me today. And I am so thrilled to be able to talk with you about this because I've had the exact same experience of clearing a room at a party when people find out what I do. So it's really nice to be able to be with a like-minded person. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for
Um,
joining me. Yeah.
yeah. So growing up, I would say my perspective on death and dying was probably like fairly typical. It wasn't really talked about that much, but it also wasn't, something to be really feared. We just kind of ignored it. Like if a distant family member died, my parents would, drag me to the funeral or memorial service, and really I was more bored than anything being there. One of my earlier memories of death is when our family pet died, our cat died. And I remember coming home from school and discovering that she died, and my dad had wrapped our cat in my sister's baby blanket and buried her in the backyard.
Wow.
We came home to discover this, and my sister was more upset about losing her baby blanket than she was about the cat dying. Uh,
Right.
yeah, so it really, as a child, it was just kind of something that was there, but it wasn't really a part of our reality. And it wasn't until I was a teenager, when my dad was diagnosed with a brain tumor, that we really got a crash course in the reality of what, death and dying is like for a family. And it was a really scary thing. It was really associated with fear and rapid change. And we were really lucky that my mom guided us through that. But as teenagers, the lasting message was that death is something that is to be feared and just avoided.
Right. Yeah, I think a lot of us can kind of relate to that for sure. So as you were growing up and you had this experience with your father, what changed for you, or why did things change for you, and how did you get to this place where you are more comfortable about the topic that you
Mm-hmm.
want to help people?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that fear of death, it really dogged me for quite a long time, and really shaped really my entire world and decisions that I made. I just kind of imagined, the Grim Reaper hiding behind every corner. And it wasn't until my gran, was approaching her end of life, and she was going through her dying process, that I had the chance to really examine some of those fears and beliefs around dying and death, and to start softening some of those fears. And that came through the process of being a part of her care team. Again, my mom really ushered me through that and helped engage me in the process of caring for my gran and finding ways to comfort her. So as a young woman, I, helped wash her hair. I would read to her, change her oxygen tank, plan tea parties in the garden with her. So, I was really a part of her life completion process. Um, so through that, I think that fear was transformed, and I really came to see dying and death as like a really cherished rite of passage that is important not only for the person who's dying, but also for their loved ones that are caring for them.
It's just really amazing that your mom encouraged you to do that. That, sometimes parents will try and protect their kids from that, but sometimes that's a bit of a disservice because it breeds more fear. It sounds like your mom encouraged you to really make the most of that difficult time in your life.
Yeah.
After that experience, did you continue to have any, or do you still have any fears about death and dying for yourself?
Mhm.
That, I'm just curious about, like, it was transformative, it sounds like, but do you still have some fears around death and dying? And then the next question is around, do you have any hopes for your own end of life journey, and or what hopes do you have for yourself?
Yeah, I think it's a really human and normal thing to fear death. I think that's something that we really all have in common. And I think the fact that that fear was such a big part of my life for so long actually is one of the things that drew me to this work, and that makes me good at it, because it's something I have in common with the people that I'm serving. And it's something that's still a reality for me every day. Just because I do this work doesn't mean that I have, it all figured out. I'm really faced with my mortality every day in the same way that the people that I work with are. Uh,
Yeah, and I would say, like, I think about death and dying every day, and I don't know if that's unusual or whether that's normal. But I guess through this process, I wanna know if that's an odd thing, or is it just something that some of us do. I know that not everybody engages in that thought every day, and I do feel a little odd, but it's nice to know that you also think about it every day. So we
yeah.
have that in common. Yeah. And
Yeah.
what hopes do you have for yourself, like, you doing this work and for your own personal end of life journey? Like, what are your hopes, I guess, for yourself, but also perhaps for other people, the people that you serve? What hopes do you have in doing this work? And maybe tell me a little bit about how you got into this work as an end of life doula, end of life planner.
Mhm. Well, first of all, yeah, the way that I got into this was I was at a place in my career and in my life where I was trying to find that intersection of purpose and passion and skill. And I quit my government job. I'd been a public servant for about 10 years. And I really wanted to find something where I could be of direct service. And a friend of mine had been exploring this field, and she brought this idea of end of life planning to me, and we collaborated on the early phase of circle space. And so it was just through that process of this light bulb going off, going, oh my gosh, there is this field, this realm of support available to people around end of life. We don't just have to kind of flail about and take it as it comes, that there's actually quite a few brilliant resources and support services out there to work in this field. And it really called to me. um, and your question about, what my hopes or my vision for my end of life, I do this really amazing exercise with some of the people that I work with around envisioning their end of life. So I ask them to think about and to sense what their final moments might be like. So where are they? Who's with them? What do they see? What do they smell? What do they hear? And
Yeah.
really a powerful exercise to help them identify what's most important to them. So I've done a similar exercise for myself. And my vision, I think, is really a typical one as well. Like I'd like to be in hospice or in the comfort of my own bed at home. I'd like to be surrounded by my family, the sounds of nature, having my kids nearby if possible. Um, and doing this activity, this envisioning activity, I realized that it's a really important step towards accepting the reality of our mortality. It's a really courageous thing to envision what your death might look like. But
And I guess in some ways that would dissipate your fear too, because you're kind of going there with someone who has walking with you through that experience, and is comfortable having that dialogue with you, makes it so much easier to kind of go there, I think, because I find that, I'm an end of life companion as well. And when I have those conversations and I'm comfortable having them,
then,
and I want to have those conversations, I find the other person relaxes into that. And I'm like, oh, okay, it's not so bizarre. And yes, I can have this conversation with someone and it's normal. It normalizes it.
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And there's so few spaces for that. And I think many of us really have that deep longing for that, the ability to have those conversations in a safe way. Um,
It's so transformative, I find. It's so interesting and intriguing. And if I can have that conversation with every single person I ever meet, I would never be bored. Like, I just find it so fascinating.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah,
real connection.
absolutely. And it's so satisfying being there for somebody where, I find that when you step into space where other people are afraid and you can model that for other people and invite other people into that space, I feel like someone's end of life experience can be so enhanced and so supported.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so much of what the end of life doula role is. It's just really being that calm, reassuring presence, holding
Yeah.
for people to experience their journey in the way that's right for them, but just to be held as they're doing it.
Absolutely. And I guess I'm really curious, and you know, typically most people want their loved ones around them, but there are some people that just want to die alone. Have you ever had that experience where someone's like, this is a private experience for me,
Mm.
and I'd like to be alone? I know I've had that, but it's not really a typical experience that people express. But I just was curious if you had come across anyone that said, I actually want this to be a private thing.
Not yet. No, no. I mean, yeah, what we want as our end of life approaches, it's such a personal thing. Um,
Yeah.
so no, I haven't had that experience.
And so I guess that leads me to my next question, and that is, with this pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, the way people are dying has changed. Like, we usually would want, many of us, our loved ones around us, and people have been dying by themselves all alone and not having their family nearby. So the way we envision this experience or to be supportive, we haven't been able to do that. So how do you feel? What do you think that this pandemic has highlighted for us? And have you experienced or have provided any guidance to anyone having that experience during this pandemic? And what was that like for you?
Mm. Wow. Yeah. I mean, it really is. It's really heart wrenching. We're in a really heart wrenching time right now. I think the biggest thing that I've learned is that our nurses and doctors, janitors, healthcare workers are true heroes. And
Mm.
that this public healthcare system that we have is a real gem and it's really worth fighting for. I think that's one of the biggest lessons that I've learned through this. Um, it is really, it's a new reality, and I am supporting several families right now through envisioning what death and dying and life completion and what living looks like during this time of physical distancing and isolation. And it's jarring and it's heart-wrenching, and it's making the best of a bad situation. I think that the one of the key parts is acknowledging the loss, grieving that loss of what we thought end of life would be like, and
Yeah.
trying to re-envision ways to adapt and ways to make those connections using technology, using ritual, just finding ways to keep moving forward, and living through this really strange time.
Yeah, I hear you. It's difficult. Like I had an uncle that I heard about, a distant uncle that died, and my understanding was that he didn't have any family nearby. And I know nurses and doctors become your family. The janitor becomes your family. But it's really got me thinking about, and also having been at the end of life for many people. It doesn't, I mean, you can plan for it, doesn't mean it's going to go that way. But if you have those conversations and you're not afraid to go there, you can build those inner reserves to say, this is what I want. But having those conversations, and if you're thinking about it, you can create some sort of internal reserves, so that, I guess what it's taught me is that to envision actually a death like that for myself as well. In that, I may have the loved ones I want around me, and this would be the ideal scenario. But if I didn't, and I ended up dying somewhere alone where I couldn't be around my family, where would I go to that place within myself
Mm,
to feel loved and connected? And don't wait till I die to have that connection with my family. Like to have that happen earlier on just makes you think about all those things, and to kind of go to that scenario where, okay, so what if I am by myself? And that's a really difficult exercise to go through. But I would say that I would encourage everyone to do that as well, because as much as we want to have people around us, or a beautiful environment, or die at home, we don't end up, and it's really traumatic when people want to die in a specific place like home. They want to die in a familiar surrounding, but that doesn't always happen. I always tell my clients that yeah, it's good to plan, and let's plan for this, but you may not die where you want to.
mhm,
Hopefully you will, but if you didn't, what are the things you need to think about? And we are born alone and we die alone. No one's coming to us past that point. So I always
mhm,
encourage people to think about that as the supports within themselves as well. And this is something that's sort of being highlighted again, and it's just yeah, really heartbreaking that people are dying alone,
mhm.
and families are not getting that opportunity to say goodbye the way we would want them, and how that's going to impact their grieving. It's
Mhm. Yeah, your points are really brilliant. Like this, this idea that we need to be doing the work now.
yeah,
The COVID-19 virus has reminded us that we are all going to die at some point. We don't know when or how that might be. So we need to start doing that work now,
yeah,
talking about what we want, what our values are, envisioning that end process. Um,
yeah,
Not now, when, when
yeah.
a better time to do this.
Yeah, and I think it's really bringing, and this is just an ideal time to talk about it, because we're all thinking about death and dying a bit more. And so let's continue to have that dialogue. And end of life doulas are not there for people who are, living with a life limiting illness or in the last chapters of their life. This is end of life doulas, end of life planning that you provide support for is for everybody, because we're all going to embark on that journey. So, what are some of the things and the things you can support people with, and the services that you provide that you would love to tell us about today?
Sure. Yeah. So, like you mentioned, excuse me, I offer end of life doula services to folks who have a life limiting illness, who are, have a terminal illness and their death is approaching. So we do pragmatic things like helping to put their affairs in order. We do life completion and legacy things. What kind of wisdom and knowledge do they want to share with their loved ones, and how do they want to leave this planet and this community? And then I walk with them through the dying process and supporting their loved ones. That's really a big part of it as well, is to help the loved ones with their caregiving, and organizing the many duties and responsibilities and the changes that they're experiencing as well. I also offer workshops for people who are healthy and who just want to get their plans in place, and who really need that little bit of extra motivation, because it's a hard thing getting all of the paperwork done and thinking through what your values and your beliefs are. So I help to guide them through it and make sure that it's actually completed and that they have those conversations. Um, the thing that I'm most excited about right now is that in the coming weeks, I'm going to be launching a new resource that I created called My Personal Comfort Plan. And it's a planning tool to help bring physical, emotional, and spiritual comfort to people through their final months and moments. So as has been working in this field, I've come across some really amazing resources around end of life planning, like identifying your values and your beliefs and advanced care planning toolkits. But what I couldn't find was information and resources around how to do the dying process itself. Like, how do we retain and nurture our humanity and the really special things that make us us as we're going through all of these changes. And I wanted to find a way to help people be as comfortable as possible through medical testing, through their treatment, and through their dying process. So I came up with this idea of personal comfort wishes. And these are things that you can do for yourself, or a loved one could do for you, or even a palliative care volunteer could do, that will help bring you comfort and peace and even joy as you're going through this transformative experience. So it's things like, the smell of lavender, or reading some poetry with a loved one, as a ritual. It's a foot massage or healing touch therapy. It's a warm wrap, a shawl that smells like home that you can wear as you're sitting on a gurney in an ER hallway. It's all of these things that just help us feel like ourselves, and to bring us comfort through this experience.
Wow. That's a tool that we all need. Sounds amazing. Like, where would someone get a tool like that, and how do they contact you to get a hold of?
I'm about to launch it. Yesterday I hit send and sent it off to my designer. So we're going to do the first printing run in the next week or so. So you could look on my website, circlespace.ca, and all of my resources are up there. I have quite a few free resources to help people navigate end of life planning. And then hopefully in the coming weeks, I'll have the My Personal Comfort Plan up there as well.
I look forward to that. And thank you so much for sharing your gifts and your compassion and your resources and tools and having this dialogue with me. Is there anything else you wanted to share? Before I end this interview, I'm just for my own curiosity, I'm just curious about what you think happens after we die.
Oh, yeah. I love this question.
Me too.
I feel fairly certain that I'm going to be reunited with my loved ones who have died before me and with my ancestors. And I'm really curious about that. Like, one thing that I don't fear is death itself, the moment of death. I'm actually really curious about what happens, what is to come.
Yeah.
And the thing that I don't know is what that reunion will look like or feel like. Is it going to be that energetic soup where, just in some way I'm going to recognize, this return to this life source? Or am I going to cross over and standing there before me will be my loved ones in their earthly form, holding a glass of wine, like waiting to welcome me? Like, I don't know. But I do feel confident, and I do feel comforted that there will be that reunion, and that there will be that love and that kind of sense of bliss.
It's so comforting to talk about it and to learn about what you think happens, and keeps us all curious, and there's all this mystery around it. So I think having these conversations is like something that's going to feed our soul. It's going to hopefully dissipate some of our fears, and help us to kind of navigate this uncharted territories with more support. So I really want to thank you for taking time to have this conversation today. And if you want to find out more about what Chelsea has to offer, you live in Victoria, correct?
Yeah.
But you provide support to people across Canada because you're able to do that virtually as well.
Yeah, 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 absolutely.
So if you're interested and you want to connect with Chelsea, it's Chelsea Petal at circlespace.ca.
Sorry,
And
just Chelsea at circlespace.ca.
sorry, it's
Yeah,
Chelsea at circlespace.ca.
yeah.
And Chelsea also has some free resources there and can connect with you virtually to support you. So let's continue the dialogue and continue these conversations and enjoy having them and be curious about them. So thank you again, Chelsea, and hope I can interview you again about some other topics.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for creating this platform. I think it's a really wonderful thing that you're doing, and I really look forward to seeing your future interviews.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm excited. Thank you.
Yeah.
Take care.
Okay, thanks.
Bye.